So we had stopped in the middle of a discussion of how the rainbow could be a sign, given that it's part of physics and therefore should have been in place even before Noah came around.
Hmm.
So before he gets to his own 2 cents, he was discussing the possibility that a meaning was ascribed to an already existing phenomenon, which is a position of the Ramban. And I think we discussed it last time. If not, then when I print up these pages, you'll see the Ramban in the side margin here. Um, but I want to kind of get past the some of his physics to focus on something a little more relatable. So I'm not going to take this at a little bit faster pace than I took the. I'm going to try to take this at a little bit faster pace than I did the diversity piece. So now he's offering his own answer, but if I forget to share the screen, you won't see it. Okay. So Aval Hachuva Bazeh. So his answer for this, Kikodem Amabul Haya Mausim Hayasodim Hatartonim Limshol Biyasoda Aish. Before the flood, the more earthlier elements, meaning it's probably supposed to be Dachtonim, the more earthly elements, meaning earth and water, um, would 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 dominate the element of fire. Shivo Litsura Hamayamayis, and would turn it to something a little more watery. Basherhim Mutadim Limshol Biyasod Ha'avir, as they are as they are oriented, as they are established to rule over air. So the two the two more lower elements kind of drag the other ones down. So just as they can drag down air, they also originally used to drag down fire. Ube'esahi, he'll explain this at more length. So we won't hazard a whole background here. Ube'esahi, kasher yigbar halachus, at this time when humidity becomes greater, Yachala Shayasoda Yishiyi, the element of fire, who would get weaker. So this element of fire would get weaker. Ad Shalo Yira Hamarahu, until you wouldn't see it at all. So in the old days, the other elements were so much more powerful in relation to fire that the light wouldn't make it through it all. Aval, Aval Hashem Hasagiv Bo Bikocho, Hashem strengthened it with his power. Rotzelomar Shechizak Yisod Ha'ish. He made the power of fire and light stronger. Ad Shelo Yispal Mitzada Yisod Hazachtonim. Until they wouldn't be stopped by the lower elements. Ad Shelo Yischadesh Zeh Hamar Mitzad Hakos HaNitzot HaShemesh. And then the what's it called? You had this new phenomenon that the shalom is kind of throwing me. the, right, that the spark of the sun would make it through, although distorted. Below in Hayan Nishar Ha'inyan Altivo, the thing didn't stay according to its nature. Let me open the chat. People are chatting. Okay. Velo Hayanishar Inyan Altivo, Kolis Velu Hayanishar Inyan Altivo. Had things stayed according to the old nature, Hayakoli Yisodos Me'utadim Lashuv L'Tevat Chatonim, everything would have been dragged down. Kiteva Hayetzira, because that's the way things are. Hey, Chayiv Sheyimshol Hatachton Be'elyon. The lower has to dominate the upper. V'sheyeshiv hu a love. Valzeh derech. Perish Ramban, and this is how the Ramban explains the Samti es Zarachaka Far Haaretz. This is how the Ramban explains the bracha to Avram, that I will make your children like the dust of the earth. Rotzelamar, as if to say, Sheyi inyan zaro, inyan ha'afar shakol inyan ha'afar. Children, Avram's children will be like the dust. Shakol yidruchu alav. Everybody walks all over us. Ubachrona, but at the end, yalahu al dar zorcho. At the end, we cover those who walk all over us. Yeshivu love, and we dominate them. We vanquish them. I don't know. Im sheteva hayitzira chayev sha'usam shehim elyonim betivam. If the nature of creation is such that that it is mandatory that those which are of higher nature, ba'atzman yinutzchu v'yeshuvu shfelim, will be betivam ba'atzmam. Sorry, those which are higher in their nature and their essence. Yinutzchu will be vanquished, v'yeshuvu shfelim, and will be pulled down to the low. Kol shkein shero yizev b'mi shemakbi atzmo. So too, you'll see somebody who makes himself all grandiose or self-aggrandizes. In ways that aren't appropriate, sheyashu shafel. He too will go down low. And from this it will be explained what the idiom of Chazal, if nei shever gaon, that Hashem breaks the haughty, haughty. Mashamru Razal, and what Chazal say, Vim higis daito, if he's presumptuous, Hakadosh Baruch Hu mashpilo, Hashem lowers him. Shekain roi b'mishpatei Hashem hayisharm. That is what's appropriate from God's um, correct rules. V'sheteva yitzira kain chayav, and the nature of creation also obligates it. V'im kain efo ezeh v'faleit lanu b'zeh. And if so, can we ever escape this? And I would translate this as the power of being drawn down, and the translator has it as escaping the discussion. But be that as it may, so what was all that? He's saying that before the flood, the power to bring down fire, to lower fire's fieriness, to make it more earthly and watery, was stronger before the flood than after the flood. And therefore, you didn't see a rainbow, right? It just didn't make it through the clouds. If you want to discuss this in modern terms, perhaps you could say that there was more water in the atmosphere, so the light didn't refract, it just got darker. But what he's talking about, though, is less the rainbow and more the power of the low to bring down the high. That everything that goes up must come down, right? And if you people stomp all over the dirt, right, the dirt ends up covering the people. There's not a you can't or if you argue with a pig in the mud, you both get dirty. The difference is the pig likes it. This kind of force is built into creation, in his opinion, even into the four elements, which is why he discusses the rainbow. But in terms of where we started, talking about the person who's a Balgaiva, this is the nature of being lofty, is that what goes up falls. Right? So I don't know what he would do though. I mean, that sounds very whatever. Um, but you could have made an argument from a kiln that um, fire ennobles dirt, earth, right? That the whole thing of pottery is that a kiln can take earth and raise it, but that's not, again, I'm not going to overly analyze the mushal because I don't think there are only four elements. We're just going to use it as it is. But tshuva and the answer, Kol masha anu medabrim b'masa Breishis, everything we speak about with respect to creation, Kol masha vinu bo, and everything that we understand about Kol masha vinu bo achamim kulam, everything all of Chazal understood about it. Im lo b'shefa eloki, if it doesn't come from divine flow from shefa, einam bichlal masa Breishis, it would not be included at Masa Breishis. Shechayvu Razal Yidu of La Stiro V'Lalimo. The Chazal obligated those who know about it to keep it esoteric and to hide it. Ukamoshanu Atidim Lavar, like we're about to explain. Bim Kain Chazar Ziburenu Bezeh Ki Yeser Hadrushim Beis HaChasanu V'Kiyotze. But if this is so, then everything we talk about is just a nice homily, like a rabbi giving a speech at a wedding. In other words, I can't say anything real and profound because I have to keep it esoteric. So this is just going to be a nice, Shabbos morning drasha, little wedding speech uh, version of the discussion of my separations. See, what he did here was he went from the elements to mixtures to community to people, from people to from the community of people to the Balgaiva, and how the forces of nature, like the tendencies of nature, have the mida connected mida for abhorrent behavior built in. And now he's going to talk about if this is true, that providence and nature are both that Breishis is about providence, and providence and nature, describe the same activities. He has to explain what is this Breishis and how the description of the activities that Breishis gives is different than the description of the activities that what's called that science would give you. So that's going to be the focus of the next, keta, is what is Ma'aser Breishis and how does it differ on the one hand from Ma'aser Merkava, which I'll just call theology, and on the other hand, how does it differ from science? Like, what is this topic called Ma'aser Breishis? Everyone with me, even though we kind of like skimmed past that elements and fire and rainbow thing because it's just not science I can relate to. Okay, thumbs up from Steve. Okay, very good. Now he's using the app to thumbs up. Okay. Amnon, Inyan Ma'aser Breishis Mahut Sarich Biurachav. The truth is the topic of what is Ma'aser Breishis needs a broad explanation. Kine Haramam Zal Omar, because the Rambam says, Ma'aser Breishis hi Chachmas HaTeva. The Ma'aser Breishis is itself studying nature. V'yesh possess stiros gedolos, but the Rambam's position has serious contradiction. So the nearest I could find to where the Rambam says this about Ma'aser Breishis was in Yesodei Torah, where he says what I discussed in the first two chapters, that's Ma'aser Merkava. I discussed in the second two the chapters 3 and 4, that's Ma'aser Breishis. So he says this in Perek Daled, halacha yud of Yitzodei Torah. And if you look at the second two paragraphs, it has to do with form and substance and the spheres and so on. So the Yesh says Stiras Gedolos, he thinks that the Rambam's position has paradoxes, has big problems. He ain't b'diburenu b'yisodos u'b'marakavim. None of what we discussed so far about the elements and their combinations, hanim shachim mehem, that come out of them, davar sheyischayvu hastara v'alama. Nothing about that really requires being kept esoteric. But ode more imhu kain, if it were so, you'd have to lay out the border, the limit. Shanamo bo that we are to stand by. Velone fars mulamon. And so that we know like what not to tell everybody. Gain suffix, no doubt. The chomashu binyanateva, anything that's natural, ubiuro, or explaining the nature. In other words, experimental science and theoretical science. Ain ro'oi sheyiya nistar v'nelam. It's not appropriate to keep it esoteric and hidden. Aval roi she's parsing. It's appropriate to let everybody know. Shari yadua, it's well known. Shechachmas harafua, medicine. V'chachmas avodas hadama, agriculture. V'hamara and shepherding. Nimshechos mechachma teva. They're all outcomes of science. In other words, no science, there's no engineering. There's no applied knowledge without the theoretical knowledge. So how could you be telling me that we have to keep this a secret? You're dooming your shepherds to wasting their time. You're dooming the farmers to wasting their time. Right? You definitely would not have any programmers. Vihine imkain, if so, hayoshvim ba'area pruzos, people living in the hinterlands, dorshim tamid b'masa Breishis. They're constantly learning masa Breishis. The Yodimbo, and they know it because, rural dwellers farm. I mean, that's like, known. And therefore, and we also can't say that masa Breishis has nothing to do with nature. Sharei masa Breishis nusad hulo be'olamatachton. It's entirely on the lower world, v'lo be'elyon, not the higher world, not the. It's about Aretz. It's not about Shemayim. Kizeh yiyeh masa merkava, because masa merkava is about heaven. Ve'im lo yiyeh masa Breishis yidiyas tevav v'nyanav. And if masa Breishis is not knowing the nature and matters of this world, im lo eifo if not this world, then what is it? V'zeu im kain derer mechadesh mevucha b'tzarech biur. So this just leaves us more perplexed. It creates perplexity and needs explanation. So he's stating now what I told you in the intro. The Rambam unifies Ma'aseh Bereshis with nature, right? So he can't. So he's telling you to keep sciences, secret, and the Ran doesn't. First of all, doesn't understand how that's possible, and second of all, doesn't understand how there's any value to it. Right? Those are different statements, right? There's the value statement and the practicality statement. But in any case, he just doesn't get that, so he rejects the Rambam's opinion. Vachu,
Well done.
yeah,
Because I think that's a pretty obvious question. I should have thought of against on the Rambam.
right. The thing is, to the Rambam, right, knowing how nature works is knowing the mind of God, right? Because you're seeing His wisdom, and therefore,
But why does it
Maaseh.
have to be in secret?
That's a very good question. I
That's
mean,
what he has.
his whole elitist attitude. He's convinced that the masses, when you teach them stuff, they're going to understand it wrong and abuse it. I mean, like that's a given for in his world, right? He has a very low opinion of Amei Haaretz. But we don't have to. We don't have to like his opinion. I mean, there's a reason why I intentionally did not go to Moreh Nevuchim as our next topic. He doesn't speak to me, so I'm not the right guy to defend him.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Can I ask a question?
That's what you're here for.
Yeah. So I've heard that. I mean, not that I know anything about this. Masa Breishis and Masa Merkava were, by more or less rationalist Rishonim, considered to be physics and metaphysics. Again, that's what the Ron is
Yeah,
interrogating.
right. That's the problem the Ron has.
But later, I mean, I've heard it said that, quote, everyone now holds that we really know that Breishis, Masa Breishis, Masa Merkava are like the Zohar and the Tikkunim. Or what I mean, that's the normative position now post Arizal, but I'm not
I
sure.
don't. I don't think that's true, and we'll see what the Ron, how the Ron defines Ma'aser Bereshis.
Yeah,
Okay, I mean that's the topic we're currently looking at. But clearly, I don't think one has to believe in. My personal opinion on Nister, since he's talking about like he doesn't understand things being hidden. I have the same question when it comes to Torah mitzvos. Why keep if you really needed Kabbalah to be a good Jew? Well, let's back up. Let me back up a step, right? Why does the pasuk say Nasa Adam Mitzalmenu Kidmusenu? Let us create man. Right? What that's a very strange um if you think about it, that's a very strange statement because it allows for heresy, right? Somebody's going to say that and go, see, Hashem said that there are Hashem's talking to other gods, right? Let us make man. And this is a known, right? Rashi, I think, discusses it. I mean, it's a Chazal, but Rashi quotes it. And the Chazal answer, because it's better to help those who are worth helping, even if it trips up those who are headed in the wrong direction. And it's that important to teach the midos of consulting others that HaKadosh Baruch Hu used that language, even though somebody toying with heresy would say, oh, he's toying to other gods, right? He didn't rule the world alone, right? Because teaching the Midah is more important than teaching the Midah to the good is more important than the risk to the other people. So I would have said the same thing about Kabbalah. If Kabbalah were really all that necessary to being a good Jew, how come it's esoteric? Why don't we just all learn it? Because this way, it's the same. It's the same. What's the word I'm looking for? It's the same calculus, right? Right. The people who are headed in the wrong direction will get tripped up, but that's a price we have to pay in order to help the people who are actually like pursuing Torah mitzvahs. I therefore would personally find myself more at home in a derech that is fully comprehensible without Kabbalah. I'm not saying that. I mean, I actually have been learning the Zohar lately, um, but but and but that, there's a kind of a joke there because I'm doing it as a way to keep a relationship, but not because of what book we're learning. But in any case, um, I'm not saying anything for or against learning Kabbalah. I'm saying that I cannot believe that that my decisions as to how to behave have to rest on a book that Chazal kept hidden, rest on a topic that Chazal are telling us to keep hidden. And if this is true, if the Ran is willing to make this argument for farming, that you're not going to have as good medicine if you don't tell people about biology and anatomy. You're not going to have farming. You're not going to have shepherding and allied. You're not going to have engineering because that's what I studied. Without people learning, physics, then then what's it called? Then all the more so, right? What about Masa Merkava? Right? If we really needed it functionally, how would it stay hidden? Or why would it be kept hidden? So that's my own personal flavor. I mean, you don't have to be as rationalist as I am. But that's the way I take it. And one thing I noticed about Musser is that Rabbi Salanter doesn't mention Kabbalah at all. Or you could go with Tomer Dvora. And all the midos are laid out, in imitation of the Esesphiros and and divine behavior. And Ramosha Cordovero, the greatest name in Zohar before the Ari. So I kind of see that as a indicative of what I'd want out of a derech. It's compatible with Kabbalah, but you don't need Kabbalah in order to be a good, in order to follow its definition of who's a good Jew. Long detour, but that's kind of because he said that about science, so I'd say the same thing about Masa Merkava. Um, but let's see how he does define Ma'aseh Bereshis, or at least get started before the next half hour ends. But Tshuva B'zeh, which this is the third time he's saying that he's going to give you the answer. This is the third paragraph that starts with introducing the answer. Tshuva, Amnon Ki, Tshuva, okay. Ein Safek, Ki Ma'aseh Bereshis Hi Chachmas HaTeva. There's no doubt that Ma'aseh Bereshis is the wisdom of nature. Avalome also tzad shehischakmu bo hanashim mitzad mechakram, but not the aspect of nature that people can get to by scientific exploration. Aval mitzad, or he would have said philosophical, like chakiros. We're not, I'm talking about experiments, but he's talking about natural philosophy. Aval mitzad ma shahidiya ne'elama bo mitzad amechkar. Rather, Ma'aseh Bereshis is that respect which is hidden from research. Lo tuda won't be known elo b'shefa eloki, only through the divine shefa, Hashem's outflow. Everything that exists has shnei pa'alim, two causes, two actors. Paul nimshach achar chamram. One set of activities happen from their substance. Paul nimshach mitzad surasam, and one that comes from their forms. Asher hu atzmusam, which is the real essence of something. Something is more defined by its form than by its substance. So let me stop for a second. A form and substance have a very, very physical understanding, right? You have a shape and you have the thing that makes the shape, an object and not just math. How do you get from it to bit? You put Homer in. And then the tsura, the shape, that's just an idea, becomes a thing. But there's also loftier ways of understanding that. So an inanimate object, when you talk about tsura, is just the shape and properties of the object. When you talk about an animal, it also now takes on tinges of the soul of the animal. So when you have a artifact, right? So you have, I don't know, a stapler. So you have a stapler, right? So the shape, what makes it a usable shape stapler, its function is defined by its form. It's less about it being metal and more about the shape of the metal. For that matter, metal itself is tsura because the fact that it's hard is tsura. It's not the stuff, right? There's only one stuff, whether you're talking about air or you're talking about staplers. So tsura really defines a thing's function, and that's why he calls it the etzem. The chomer is kind of the itness of the object. and the Torah is the, well, you start getting to form, you start getting into purpose, you get into so he's playing with that duality here when he talks about the actions that happen because of the substance. He's talking more about physical causation. When he's talking about the things that happen because of their tzura, we'll see that that's less about physics. Sorry, that's the second half. Things that happen by the tzura, which is their essence, which, as we said, is like, it's the properties of a stapler that make it usable as a stapler. And then just the things that happen because it's physical object. Yod a Yodu mitzad hachakira mitzad hasagas mechakrehem. So they're known through. Sorry. The things that happen because they're physical objects. Yode mitzad hachakira mitzad hasagas mekrehem. So that you can know from exploration and from watching their events, as we say nowadays, from experimental observation. Aval asher mitzad turasam, but that which happens because of their shape, that you couldn't possibly know just for scientific exploration. Or rather, it is only from that which brings the it's not nisayon in the normal sense of the word. That's why I'm blanking here.
Like measurement, like
that. No.
Measurement is in essence a test, right?
Yeah, I think it's more like the event to light. In other words, the it's a chakira elamitzad masha utzia nisayon laor. Only from, I don't know. I'm lost here. It's our experiences bring to light. In other words, you can't get it objectively. You have to get it by living it.
You can't get it from theory, but you have to get it from experience.
You can't get it from experiment. You have to get it through living through it.
Right.
So it's not an objective measurement.
You can't predict it based on the other information you know.
Well, I don't know if theory is right because I'm putting theory and experiment on one side and living through it on another side.
Right. So it's not something you can get from extrapolation. It's something that you have to actually experience.
Yes. But it's also something you can't get through objective measurement. It's something you have to live through. Well, we'll see. We'll see when he continues exactly why I'm drawing the line between two ways of seeing something. And those things that we live through, we wouldn't know the reason for what they're doing. We know the pil, that pepper. We don't mean we mean like the spice, not bell peppers. That it makes things hot. I know it says mechames, but it's mechamem.
Is anyone else able to see what Micha's reading now?
Oh man, I never restarted the share.
Oh, well, it was
okay.
Good. Clear.
It's clear for me. Wait.
Oh no, yeah, it was good.
Overlapping magisteria.
Yeah, no. I'm not reading the sidebar. Okay. Okay. We know the pil that pepper shu mechamem. I know it says mechames, but it's obviously a typo, right? It makes things warm. Pepper tastes hot. But no the sibas hachimum, and we know the reason of the heat. Liyas hayisoda ishi is from the element of fire. Go love, right? There's a lot of the element of fire in peppers, and that's why they taste hot. The fact that capsaicin triggers your heat sensors, not just your taste buds, that's totally irrelevant. It's because the element of fire is strong in peppers. And it's pulled after its substance. But if we know that, like, a person laughs or a magnet, Even Hashoeves is a magnet. Mosheches Habarzel pulls iron. We'd only know that from firsthand experience. Well, no, but we wouldn't know the theory. So I guess you're right, Moshe. We wouldn't know the cause. We couldn't come up with a theory because that happens by form. And that's closed to people. You can't understand form. Through human exploration alone, that door will never be open. Ain suffix, no doubt, the things that have to happen because of the object, because of the substance. A davar mitzad chomer davar. Berach al mechayivim mitzad etzam davar. Kamar midli. So we know that the things that happen, that the things that happen because of the substance of the object, compared to the things that happen by the form of the object, is like a drop in the bucket. Because the things happen from the form, happen from the thing's truth and essence. And these are the things that and the things that substance things of the substance happen from, like, incidental. That are an outcome of its truth, not the truth itself. And those things which come out of their form, that are consequences of the form, they depend on whoever gave it the form. Oh no, saying or giver, or whoever it is, either the givers or the giver with a capital G, whomever it may be. And that is kept from human wisdom. And understanding this is just unobtainable.
Mikat, maybe?
It could be.
Yeah.
I thought it was it was tortuously withheld. Was really the way I was reading it. But okay, your way makes more sense. But the point so when he starts bringing in the giver of the form, so that's where I started writing on the side, overlapping magisteria, which is what Ariel was reading, which Rabbi Sachs once said. Well, he said it lots of different ways, but one time he phrased it this way: it's the role of science to explain the how, the role of religion to explain why. I believe what he's saying here is that Surah, in order to explain why something, in order to explain something's form, You have to know who gave it the form and why. And so things that happen to an object because of its form boil down to a who, and a who gave it a form. And until you know his purpose and his intent, you're never really going to get to the bottom line of what happens in this world. Whereas the physics end of things, that could be explored, philosophically and scientifically. In other words, you could say it's a property of warm objects to go up, but you can't explain. At some point, okay, so you can explain it's a property of warm objects to go up. Then you could explain warm objects. The molecules are moving faster, so they're further apart. So there's less weight per square whatever. Let's say square foot. You're right, there are fewer molecules in a square foot in a hot object than in a cold object. And that's why the hot air rises, right? But what we don't have, after all this use of the word why, we only have the mechanics. We don't have why did God make how do I want to say it? The Rambam the Rambam sees science, knowing science as knowing the mind of God. But okay, I got another way of doing this. In the past few parshios, we were busy, like with all these nisim and the miracles that prove that God is there, and He gave us man, and this way we know that we have food all the time. Is equally from Hashem, and He did it once at Yetziat Mitzrayim, and that shows, we learned the lesson, or we have the ability now to learn the lesson that the day to day also comes from God. But a lot of the Rishonim had the opposite problem. And that is, Hashem is perfect. You could create a perfect universe. Miracles kind of interrupt the normal order miracles interrupt the normal order of the universe. So if Hashem can make a perfect universe, why did He make a universe where He needs to intervene with miracles? Doesn't that show a flaw in creation that that He needed to have Yetziat Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsuf and I don't know, the sun standing still, in order for history to run out the way it should? Why didn't Hashem just set up the laws of physics perfectly so that no intervention would be needed? And then, the different Rishonim have different explanations why. And the bottom line is that the clockwork universe has one major non-clockwork, and that is people have free will. And then there's also the lesson we started with that people needed to see, that may be true logically, but people need, we get used to the mundane, and therefore you need something to wake you up and show you whatever the explanation is. I'm more interested right now in the question, and that is, why do there need to be miracles if the Ribono Shel Olam could have made the perfect nature? So there's this idea of seeing divine wisdom in nature, and therefore, they're asking, perfect wisdom should be perfect nature. You should never need to have a little hiatus from nature to get something else done. So where was I going with this? Yeah. So the there's a why to nature. Like the biggest proof of the biggest evidence of Hashem's existence is not the miracle. And that was the problem that the Ramban, Sforno, Chizkuni raised with in the first half of Sefer Shmos. The bigger proof that Hashem exists is that there's physics to begin with. Just the mere existence. In fact, the Rambam calls that hashgacha klalis, the overall hashgacha. Now we talk about hashgacha pratis. Now we define that as providence because Hashem gives each person exactly what that person's life story needs. But there's hashgacha klalis that runs nature. So that's the right. So there's a connection between there's a jump going from Maisa Merkava and theology to why science looks the way it does. Why is there a gravity? Why is there magnetism? Why did Hashem make the world behave the way it does? Why do things have these forms? Like even given evolution, if you're so inclined to believe in evolution, right? There's no explanation for why what's it called? There's no explanation for why lion given in the evolution. I mean, yeah, that is what fits that is what happened to mutate to fit the right. But bottom line is there's no whys to any of the scientific explanation. That's why I talked about the 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 how question is different than the value question, and therefore the science question is different than the religious question. And even when it comes to running the universe, the laws of nature and why God chose these laws of nature are different topics. And I think it's the why God chose these laws of nature and why the world works the way it does that he's defining as Breishis. And so the fact that that which become that the haughty have to be lowered fits the way the world works, right? That is to the Ran. That is my separation. Since we're talking about like the Ran rejecting the Rambam's, we're talking about the Ran rejecting the Rambam's opinion, the Rambam's definition of my separation. The Rambam doesn't actually have the same marriage between providence and nature that we're given. Right, to the Rambam, people earn the right to providence, to hashgacha pratis. Right, somebody who understands God, he gets hashgacha pratis. This is in the Moreh in Chelek Gimel Perek Yud Zayin. He says that he agrees with Chazal's opinion that animals do not get hashgacha pratis, and people get hashgacha pratis, or at least that's his understanding of Chazal's opinion. Obviously, later Achronim have a different take, but that's his understanding of Chazal's opinion. He agrees with that, but he says that the word person, is a fuzzy set. Depending on how much you use your head, you can be more or less than a person, and therefore, a human being, a Homo sapien, could get more or less hashgacha pratis in their lives, depending upon how well they know God. So, with that idea, so what happens to somebody who doesn't know God? Well, he's left to nature, and that is itself a punishment. Like we have in the Tochacha when it talks about "Valachti mi bekeri," and many touch the word "keri" as happenstance. Right, Hashem. If a person abandons God, so Hashem abandons the person to nature. The Ran can't say that because the Ran doesn't draw a line between hashgacha and nature. That's what we were seeing all through this. Hashem set up a nature that conforms with hashgacha. So we can't have this idea that you earn hashgacha pratis, you lose hashgacha pratis, right? It's how it's all one thing. So we'll see more of that in the week to come. Maybe weeks, we'll see. But in any case, let's look at this last paragraph in the last 5 minutes, unless somebody has something to say about that long background. Okay, V'zehu sha'amar Shlomo b'chachmaso. So again, he quotes Shlomo. He has a habit of that. He called Kol zeh nisisi b'chokhmah. All this I have tested with my wisdom. Amarti echkama. I said I will become wise. V'hi rechokah mimeni, but it is far away from me. Rachok Masha, he has a bunch of vigomers that I just filled in with text. Rachok Masha Haya, what was far away, but Amok me it's a menu. That which is far away and deep, deep who will find it? Yirtzebazeh, what's Shlomo trying to say with this? Kima Shehu Omer Shachachma Rechoka Mimenu, that which he says, that wisdom is far away from him. Omer Achar Kach, he says, Rachok Masha Haya. Omar Lo Tachshov, so as to say, don't think Shomoshu Rachok when he says that far away. Lo Yiyazeh Ki'im Basagas Hadvarma Tidim. It's only things that are in the future, forecasting that is far away. Elash Uchalamod Alamitas Ma Shekvar Haya, but I am able, I meaning Shlomo or any human being of lesser abilities, would be able to understand things that happened already. Kigam Mashahaya, that's why you have the second puzzle, the first out of the puzzle, Rachok Mashahaya, what was is far away. Nishlam, Matsasiya, so Amok Bimeni, of Nishlam, and it concludes, Masasiya, so Amok Bimeni. I found it too deep for me. Lo Eda Bosiba, I don't know the reason. By he says reason, I think he's not talking Siba as cause. I think he's talking Siba as purpose. And he knew from philosophers, from knowers of wisdom themselves, that this is true. All of this I proved through wisdom. Because everybody who becomes wise knows, agrees on this. Rotelomar idias atzmi, my own knowledge or my knowledge. Where are we? I lost this.
Knowledge of myself.
Hadvar mapulos hamnishachos mehem davar lo tafsik lo hakira. I know of myself that I will never be finished exploring. Sorry, it'll never be sufficient to explore this.
It's atzmei hadvarim, not atzmei.
Oh, I thought it was by first-hand knowledge. That's because
remember
I was going before about the difference between experimental knowledge and
I don't think
that was the way I read. No.
You're not wrong. I don't just don't think that's translation.
Okay, no, we're good. So I'm gonna take one last detour since we're running low on time. I'm gonna stop the share because we won't get to the next paragraph. So there's two words in Hebrew that mean because. Anybody want to hazard?
He and the How's Aramaic?
Yeah. No, I'm talking in the Chumash. Okay. Lama nigara lama nigara whether the right? Why should we lose out? I forgot the middle of the pasuk, even though this is my Mitzvah Parsha. That's why I didn't bother writing it down because I thought I knew by heart. Right? The kibechato mace that Tzlavcha died from his own sin is not an answer to the why, because the lama is asking for a lema'an. That was the other because I was going for. A key chetomes to gives you the history of the event. Lema'an gives you the purpose of the event, right? Lema'an yirbuyim echem v'mei b'nechem, the outcome of the event. So when somebody gives something a tzura, as the Ron put it, he has a plan in mind. He has a reason, a goal that he's working toward that's in the future. When somebody when you talk about causes lie in the past. Telos, purpose and function, they lie in a future, right? You you throw a book on the book fell on the floor because you threw it. You threw the book on the floor because you wanted to kill the spider. Killing the spider was ahead of dropping it. Dropping it, right, causes the fall, and the fall causes the dead spider. So when you play it, sof ma'aseh b'machshava tchila, the end of the event is what you think about first. So causality goes forward in time, and purpose goes backwards in time. You start with an end, and you start planning toward it. So just to leave you with a thought, because it's Shabbos tomorrow night. The Zohar in the Hakdama, which is all, I'm only on Daf Yud Beis. So the Zohar in the Hakdama talks about the Shabbos of Friday night. It says there are two Shabbosos, the Shabbos of Friday night and the Shabbos during the day. The Shabbos of Friday night is the Shabbos of creation. And we see that in the Vayichulu. Shabbos during the day is the Shabbos of Ma'aseh Breishis. Never mind the fact that there's a Shabbos of Lasid Lavo, which is usually associated with Shalosh Shudas. That's not in the Akdama to the Zohar, first 12 pages. So I can't tell you about it yet. But either way, the Friday night, the parak of Tanakh that we turn into a piyut goes in Aleph Bey's order. Right? Eishes Chayil Miyimtza. Right? Batach Balei Bala. Malasu Tov. Aleph Bey's order. The piyut that we've incorporated into Shabbos morning davening, a piyut that we incorporated into Shabbos morning davening. I know it's weird to call it a piyut, but technically the middle bracha of Shemona Esrei, of the Amida of Shabbos, really is the same for all of them. And then we prepended stuff later during the period of the Gonim. So it was originally a piyut. Tikante Shabbos starts with Tuf and goes to Aleph. The Shabbos of Friday night starts with God and ends up in the multiplicity of existence. Shabbos day is we start with existence and we work our way back to God. Shabbos of Friday night is a causal analysis of history. We start with Ma'aseh Breishis. Shabbos during the day is a purposeful study of history. We look at the now and we work to Olam Haba. And that's how Shabbos becomes a Me'ain Olam Haba. So you have the causality of the Chomer, as the Ran put it, and the teleology, the purpose-seeking events of the tzura, of the form. And in order to know that, you have to know the mind of the one who gives form. Okay, nice little drasha.
Nice little drasha. Thank you.
Interesting. So
fit for a wedding.
So I mean, I guess because people talk about this distinction between like mechanistic explanations and teleological explanations, right? So I mean, that's really what we're talking about here.
I believe so, except he's saying that teleological explanation involve he's focusing on the fact that they involve somebody having intent.
Right. I mean,
and therefore he's getting into, therefore to him it's a spiritual topic.
Right.
Because at the very least it's a human being giving intent.
Right. Because I mean, you can't have you can't pursue a teleological explanation without laying out what I mean. The whole purpose of teleological explanation is laying out the purpose that events are reaching towards, and so I guess that's what's being linked with Tzura, whereas like mechanism is linked to Chomer. Since it sounds like what's going on here.
Right. Well, right. So we have the Chomer Tzura duality is related to the Guf Neshama duality, even though the Guf has a Tzura, because the Neshama is all Tzura. It's like a higher Tzura than the body's form. So yeah, that's why I was touching on that before. An inanimate object has a certain amount of Tzura because it has a form. Plant has more Tzura because it could grow. It goes beyond just the shape of the object, the hardness, the physical properties of the object, because there's life to it, than animals and people. But yeah, that's the that's the whole Homer Tzura.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, and it's interesting, but even though that's like Aristotle, it's all over Kabbalah as well.